strategist and coach for online health and wellness coaches, life coaches, and mindset coaches. And on this show, we cover sales, marketing, time management, and mindset. And today I wanted to bring on Dawn Leday. She was one of my guest experts inside the inner circle, and I loved what she had to say about identity and mindset. And so we're going to really dig deeper on that today. She is the founder of the Self Trust Solution, and this is where she helps coaches and experts grow their business by strengthening the leader behind this strategy. She specializes in helping high capacity entrepreneurs close identity gaps, stabilize momentum, and build businesses that move from side income to primary sustainable growth. Through her self trust identity map and proprietary frameworks, Dawn helps clients develop the clarity, decision stability, and self trust needed to hold their vision firm while allowing strategy to evolve. She coaches inside the Embodied Society and hosts the Self Trust Solution podcast, which is a top ranked show for entrepreneurs building their next level. So, thank you so much for being here, Dawn. Tell me a little bit about what made you so interested in talking about self trust.
Oh, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And like many people who get impassioned about something, I really had an experience of recognizing a lack of self trust in my own professional career. So I led hospitality. I was a hospitality leader in New Orleans for 20 years, leading sales and marketing teams. And I was really good at it. I excelled at it. But there was a point when I was drowning, and I guess you could call it burnout. Is the probably what most people would recognize if I told you more about it. But I just knew I needed to change something. And for me at that time, I didn't know a lot about mindset. I didn't know about how our thoughts control or, what we do, and that we actually can choose them and we don't have to believe everything we think. And so my, like many people, was just to dive into action. Many of us high achievers, we just want to dive into action to fix things. And the action that I took, interestingly enough, was to sell my car, to force myself to walk 2 miles to work and 2 miles home from work. That was my fix to try and reclaim some sort of normalcy and some working normal hours and getting more movement in and getting more time out in nature. And so on one of those walks where I was thinking that I was very smart for doing this, I had this question pop up, and it was, why am I having to force myself to do this? And I heard it with true curiosity, which is sort of divine in itself, instead of just judgment, which is probably how I would have heard it normally. And because of that true curiosity, a flood of examples of how I hadn't been trusting myself came forward. And so I knew trust had to be a piece of the process, and I wanted to build it, but I didn't want to do it in a way that meant losing my ambition. I didn't want to stop being a high achiever. And simultaneously, I'm realizing that I want to build my own vision, not someone else's vision anymore. And so those two things coinciding is what led to me seeing the benefits of self trust in being a high achiever, reaching for new goals, and then how I could help other people do it in building businesses.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And you brought up a very good point, which is why do I have to force myself to do things? Why do
Yeah.
you think people have to do that? What do you think, is I think a lot of times we think the way that we have to take action is to get really stern with ourselves and use willpower and force ourselves. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is? And what's the alternative that coaches should be thinking about in their business?
Yeah, we really have the causality backwards. And I think it comes from just how we are, how it's modeled for us, how we're brought up. We think that we have to work hard to create the self-trust that we need. We think we need these external changes in order to create results, but really it's backwards. So when we start thinking that self-trust is the reward for getting things right, then the person who most needs it is always the last to get it. So we have to change the sequence. Self-trust is actually a choice made before the evidence is in, before the confidence arrives, before the results come in, before they confirm that you were right. So the sequence is actually choice, practice, and then expression. And so what I mean by that is you choose self-trust first, and then that choice creates the conditions for action. Actions build real competence, and competence compounds into confidence.
Yes, the one I see the most as far as what you're saying, where they think they need the external thing before they can gain the internal confidence and self-trust,
Mhm,
is they say to me, because a lot of my clients are going from 0 to 1, meaning their
mhm.
first clients, their first sales. And they say, I will, I don't feel confident in what I do yet because I haven't had any clients, or I can't believe this is a legit business until I see some evidence that my marketing is working.
Yes.
And as you just said, you have to flip that around to create the results, right? So, what would you just say to someone really struggling with that one? Like, I can't, I feel like my marketing's not working. And so this isn't working and I want to give up. How do you encourage coaches through that?
Yeah, coaches are uniquely positioned to struggle with this because their work is inherently relational and results dependent in ways that are sometimes hard to control, right? You can do everything right and a client doesn't get the result you both hoped for, or the marketing doesn't reach the person you hoped for. You can, so the feedback loop, if you will, can be inconsistent. And so we have to be rooted in the firm vision first, right? So the the constant message is often that you need more in order to believe in what you are doing, right? Like you need the external results to feed the belief. And what is actually more true is you have to firmly decide that this is what it is. This is the vision that I'm reaching for, and move towards it, letting the how unfold. So, in other words, if your marketing isn't getting the feedback that you want to look at the data of it, what's changing, what needs to adjust, and make those with the firm holding of I am the person that creates this. This is just me figuring out the how.
Yes, 100%. And why, when it comes to looking at the data, I think a lot of times we take it personally, we get overly, overwhelmed by it. We have all these feelings about it. So, how do we look at data without beating ourselves up? Because I think that's a big
Mm,
reason why people are avoiding the data, is because they don't want the mental beat down that usually comes with it.
yeah, you're so right. It has to be that framing of I want to learn from myself. I genuinely want to learn from myself. And the way that I like to look at it and help my clients through is think of it as you are a scientist. A scientist never makes the hypothesis and whether it works out the way they want it or not personal. You are going to formulate a hypothesis, you're going to take action on it, you're going to experiment, and then you're going to look at the data, the results of that to inform the next test, the next experiment. And so when we recognize, and again, it goes back to the identity piece, if I'm holding myself firmly as the person that creates this, I am not only, I trust that I can roll through the ups and downs because a business has ups and downs. even a professional career has ups and downs. So we have to normalize the things that work and don't work instead of letting them hold whether we give ourselves permission to believe or not.
Yes, and I'm going to give you pushback because this is what I hear. Well, I don't want to experiment. I just want to know what works. I just want to
Mhm,
get to the results. I don't
mhm.
want to have to go through all this experimentation. I just want to know what works. What
Yeah.
would you say to that?
I would say that that's not true. You do. Because actually, you're thinking those are two separate things. And knowing what works comes through experimenting. And honestly, what I love to share with people is that's where your most beautiful thought leadership, your intellectual property comes from, is that experimentation. Because if you just do what someone else did, you're just a mimicker. You're just a and honestly, it's not going to work the same anyway because it's not the strategy that works. It's the identity that is performing the strategy that works. So when you say I don't want to experiment, it's not really true because you do want the results of it. It's kind of like anything, like change the name of it if you want. If experiment isn't something that sounds good to you, I want to play. Try play. I'm gonna play with different things. But you do want it because you want what comes out of it.
Yes, and you have to go through the journey, the climb, the experiment to find out what works. And there's no way around it. You think sometimes people think, well, as long as I just do the method that this coach did, then it will for sure work. But the truth is, your market's going to respond different. You're going to
Mhm.
operate it differently. You're going to have different
Yeah.
strategies that work for different people. It's not a one size fits all. So there's things that, there's power in having a mentor and a coach to help you maybe avoid some mistakes, to help you have clarity about your focus and what you want to be doing. But no matter what, I think the point you're trying to say here, Dawn, is that y- nobody gets to skip the experimentation part. Would you agree with that?
I don't just agree with it. I say you don't want to. You don't get to, but you
Yes.
also don't really want to because no one wants Haley dressed up as me or me dressed up as Haley. Like they want to work with you specifically and your true authentic message and what you can help people with based on your unique life experience, your unique life perspective only comes out when you are willing to get out there and experiment and just serve and learn from it because the best thought leadership intellectual property comes from honestly missteps, mistakes,
Yeah.
failures, not getting it right. And so when we normalize those things instead of trying to get it right all the time, when we actually enjoy the process of learning from something that didn't go exactly as planned, that's where we're able to make leaps to next levels. And we start to see ourselves as the person who does. And that's probably the more important piece.
Oh, yes. Your experimentation and your process and journey and hardships you go through all make you a more well-rounded, able to help coach because you've gone through things and figured it out. So, one of the other things that I think a lot of coaches struggle with is imposter syndrome,
Mm.
or I am, maybe who would want to hear from me? Maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not unique enough. How do you help your clients through that?
Well, first, we strip away the labels. I am just vehemently against all the labeling of I'm a procrastinator, I'm a perfectionist, I have imposter syndrome, because a label is a convenient place to land. Right? It's like if I'm an imposter, then I have to wait to not feel like an imposter to move forward. And we're not waiting for these things. And so we want to dial it back down to what is it really? Okay, right now it's not imposter syndrome. I'm not giving myself permission to see myself as the person who can help my client. I'm not seeing myself as the person who can reach them through marketing. We want to boil it down to what it is more than anything, and it's always a decision, a choice. And so when we can empower ourselves in that way, even if the choice and decision is to hold back, that's a more powerful place to be than telling yourself you have some sort of syndrome.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great piece of advice. What are some other common ways that you see coaches making business harder than it
Ugh.
actually needs to be?
Trying to solve the wrong problem, consistently, persistently solving the wrong problem. It's the offer gets rewritten over and over again, the niche gets refined, the strategy gets overhauled. All of that activity creates the feeling of progress without moving the actual constraint, which is always internal. So the
Mm.
moment that a coach stops asking what's wrong with my strategy and starts asking what is the identity I need to be operating from to hold the next level, that's when everything shifts.
I love that. Tell me more about that identity piece. Like, I think a lot of people hear that but they don't really know what it looks like to dig into identity work. So tell me more about like what does that truly mean?
Yeah, so often what we're operating from is an identity gap. And what that means is it's a mismatch between where your results are going, what you want to reach next, and where your self concept is still operating from. So, the most recognizable version of it, and one that I definitely saw in myself, was moving from building a business while still seeing myself as an employee. And so, when that is happening, you can be creating movement. Your business can grow. Your evidence of capability is real. But internally, you're still running from the identity of someone earlier. And that means it creates a ceiling, basically. And it looks from the outside, most of us think it's a strategy problem or a consistency problem or a confidence problem. And what it really is this identity problem. And it can't move through strategy or more effort or more evidence. But it looks like, making a decision and then looking for someone to confirm it. Rewriting your offer or messaging more times than you can count. You feel like you're always starting over,
Oh,
though
yeah.
you're ever never not working. Yeah. So results come in bursts, they don't compound. You have real client wins, but somehow, you just create the ceiling for yourself. And what's happening is you are trying to create a next level of results from an identity that created the results right now. So we have to move our identity forward in order to create the results we want.
Yeah, love that. What about like so when it comes to your business, one of the things that I've heard you say is it doesn't have to excite you. Because I think a lot of us, when it comes to, especially I see this with sales and marketing, well, I'm
Mhm.
only, I have to do what feels, I'm only going to do it if I feel like doing it
Yeah.
versus like, oh, no, this is just part of what you have to do to have a business is market and sell, right?
Yeah.
So where did that come from? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one is to know that feelings are not instructions. We do often think that if we feel a certain way, that's a reason to either move or not move. And feelings were never meant to hold that job. That is not their job. Feelings are very important, but they are not truth tellers because we know this because you can feel the same or you can have the same circumstances from day to day and feel very differently, right? Um, you could have the same amount of money in your bank account and today you feel like at peace and tomorrow you feel nervous. The money didn't change, right? And so we have to know that feelings are not they are not strategists. That's probably a better way to even say it. Like they should not be part of your strategy. We're going to feel all the feelings and that's normal. It's part of business. Where the your business is not meant to excite you came from is I have several clients who have, leaped into the seven figures and they wanted to immediately add new offers and change things up. And I started to watch, and what I would see is it was coming from a place of they weren't excited anymore. Now, from the outside, if you were to look at a business, or at least, as I do as a business strategist, if someone has something that's really working well, it's not stagnant, nothing has really changed, but you tell me that you're not excited by it anymore. Is that really a reason to let it go? Right. And so through the coaching is where we found that it really was just this idea. What had really happened was there was an identity of when I was building, everything was exciting and new and it was all happening. And when that wasn't happening anymore, they thought that something had gone wrong. And what happened was they had a mature, beautiful operating business. So don't burn it down because it's not exciting anymore. Then it becomes an option. Like, let's upgrade the identity to meet the next level. And let's also look at where do you want to get your excitement from? There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel excited. Does it have to come from a new offer? Can it come from building something new within the existing offer that just makes it even more exciting for you and the members and brings in more people? So that's where it came from.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, and I think bringing up a really good point of why are we outsourcing our feelings to our business? I need my business to perform for me so I can feel secure. I need my
Mm,
business to do this for me so I can feel XYZ way. You feel XYZ way from exactly what you said, where it's like your thoughts and you get to choose what you want to get excited about, where you want to channel it from. And I think a big pitfall that we tend to get into is putting a lot of pressure on our business to perform for us, and when
mm.
it's not, we get graspy and we get needy and all that kind of stuff. So how do we get out of, and I can't remember who was on my podcast, but I think it was Carissa Rando, or Carissa, I don't know her last name, but she basically said we put performance pressure on our business,
Mm.
and that's the wrong thing. You don't want to do that in your business, because then your results won't match what you want and it will not be about service. And so how do we get out of that? I'm putting so much pressure on my business and I'm so graspy and I need it to perform for me, because we do have that need of like, oh well, this is my source of income. But when you're building it and you're new and it's not there yet, how do you help? What would you say to a client if they were putting that pressure on their business, and it was interfering?
Yeah, I mean, I think pressure is almost always going to interfere in some way, right? And that's another thing that we learn. I know I hear it from clients that, in college the pressure really worked for them, right? The last minute deadlines, the papers that were due and you stayed up all night and you performed well under pressure. Maybe, in your business before, in your career, if you had one, pressure was something you were able to do well. It is you though. We can't again put it on the business. The business is the expression of you and your work. And so if you're putting pressure on the business, you're also putting pressure on yourself, but it's often not the same thing as what you had decided worked for you in the past, right? But here's the thing. I like to reframe it, because if you operated well under pressure in the past, it is a skill you have, is not a choice you have to make. And so know that you have that skill, give yourself credit. I am someone who can work well under pressure, and the pressure is optional. When we name that and then we decide whether we choose it or not, it again creates that empowerment. And so if we choose it, we can normalize it. We don't have to make ourselves wrong for it, but we do want to go to the evaluation piece. How is this pressure actually serving me in getting to the end result that I want? And how is it not? And what can I shift here that would support me using the skills that I have? I know how to operate under pressure. I know how to operate without pressure. What's going to work here?
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's such a good point. And, I think there's other ways we tend to be dramatic in our business. And how to, like, sometimes it's a habit, like I think sometimes we're almost like addicted to the drama because it allows us to not work on other things or kind of be like a way to procrastinate or a way to not have to do the thing because we're just so nervous about it or we're being such a perfectionist about it that we never have to actually, move to the next step. But how do you recommend we start to become less dramatic and unravel the drama and kind of like, I think you call it an identity lag you have. Like there's you without the drama being at your goals, and then there's you now with all these drama thoughts.
Mhm.
What do we do?
First is to recognize it. Look, I like my drama moments too. There is nothing wrong with it. We are not meant to be robots who are always just like, I am thinking only about the data. I'm not, engaging in any drama. I mean, I give myself pity parties here and there. I think it's important that we normalize it. We don't swim in it. And that's the difference. When we normalize, like, oh, this is what I'm doing, I'm being dramatic for a moment. I just want to complain. I just want to woe is me. I just want to throw my own pity party for 5 minutes, put a time limit on it. And then let me get back to the data. What is this actually telling me? What is going to help me move forward? And it comes to asking the right questions, right? Because often we're asking questions like, what's wrong with me? Why isn't this working? When will this ever work? Why does it work for other people? And I always like to remind people that those are not actual questions. They're like judgments. They're criticisms in a way with a question mark conveniently placed at the end. There is nothing curious about them. We want to ask curious questions that are data driven in order to move forward. So have the drama, let yourself be human. It's part of it. Just don't let the drama drive the business decisions.
Yes, amen. I love it. So, Dawn, if people are curious about identity work and building their self-trust and want to find more about you, where can they go and tell us more?
Yeah, the best place to start is the Self Trust Identity Map. It's 8 questions, it's free. It gives you a precise read on exactly where your identity is operating from right now and what needs to move before your next level of results can follow. Your results are delivered the moment you finish, and you can find it at theselftrustcoach.com. You can also find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn at Dawn Lede Coach. And I would love to hear from you if you took anything away from today's conversation or have any questions.
Beautiful. And today's free gift of the day is the free message mastery and niche cheat sheet. So if you're not sure how to communicate what you do, who you help, how you help them, you can get a freebie at haleyrowe.com on the homepage and check that out. So thank you so much for listening to the Health Coach Nation podcast, and we will be back soon for more episodes. Thanks so much.